Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here, but sometimes we like to talk about things that aren't on Blu-ray and how sad we are about that. And so today I've done one-offs of this sort of thing where I've talked about a specific title that's not on Blu-ray, but I thought I would do these in larger groups because I have a lot of them, and actually I've started up collecting DVD-only titles again. It's just something that interests me, movies that have become rarer because of their availability on disc, and how there's a lot of stuff that's just not out there and not on disc in a format outside of DVD, and that makes me sad. So I want to shine a spotlight on some of these. Some of them will be obvious. These are a lot of favorites, so I've probably talked about them in one form or another at some point over time, but I just want to go through a bunch of them. I thought it was going to be about 10, but it might be like a dozen. Movies that, as far as I know, don't have at least a US Blu-ray. And y'all can advise me in the comments if there are, Blu-rays outside the States that are available. But I'll start with a big one, and that is California Split. Robert Altman's film, one of his best films of all time, one of my favorite films of all time, not just one of my favorite Altman films, but one of my favorite films. About gambling, about friendship. George Segal plays a guy that works at a magazine, I believe. And he goes to a poker club in LA where they have card games that you can sit in on and gamble, and he happens to be in a game with a regular gambler. It seems to be all he does, played by Elliot Gould. And there is an issue during the game, and it causes one of the other players to get very upset. And there ends up being a conflict afterwards, and it sort of puts these two on the path to friendship. They run into each other in a bar later and have a great conversation about life and the Seven Dwarfs, and they become very good friends, and it's just a wonderful buddy movie in that sense. But there's a melancholy to it. It's not just comedic. They end up sort of befriending... Well, I think Gould is already friends with a couple call girls, played by Gwen Wells and... I'm going to forget now. Yep, not going to remember that. But... And that becomes part of the plot, but it's just about gambling and the emptiness of it and stuff like that. And so it's a really great movie. I know there was a swing at making it on Blu-ray from Indicator at one point. They had announced it, but I think there might be some fairly difficult music issues with the movie. But I'm not 100% on that. But it is available to stream. You can watch it streaming. I think it was on Amazon or... I don't know, Tubi or something. But I've held on to this DVD just in case, nothing else comes of it. And it does have a commentary track from Altman, so there's always that. But it's a great movie, and it's one of those that I really hope they can resolve whatever issues are going on with it so we can get it on Blu-ray at some point. Next up, we have... The Heartbreak Kid. I may have done a solo video just on this movie at some point because it is a true all-time favorite. It's a Elaine May's film from 1972, I think, starring Charles Grodin, Sybil Shepherd, Eddie Albert, Jeannie Berlin, daughter of Elaine May. It is based on Neil Simon, but based on the story A Change of Plan by Bruce J. Friedman, screenplay by Neil Simon. But it's just a really dark, weird comedy about a guy who gets married to a woman that's Grodin, gets married to Jeannie Berlin. On the drive down to Miami Beach for their honeymoon, he already starts to realize maybe he rushed into this. Maybe he doesn't know this woman well enough, and he could have made a mistake. And once they're on the beach in Miami Beach, he sees this other woman played by Sybil Shepherd and is immediately smitten with her, and then makes it his mission to seduce her. And that sounds like a really not so great guy, and he's not, but it's just about the complexities of love and human nature and desire, and it's incredibly funny in its darkness in terms of the extents to which he goes to lie and cover up his, trying to figure out how to seduce Sybil Shepherd and meet her parents, and it's just crazy. And there's an incredible scene. I won't spoil that. Anyway, very funny movie. Owned by, I want to say, the Brute Company, or basically a chemical company that it's like one of their holdings, and I don't think they really have any interest in a realistic licensing situation. The kind of company that just asks for too much money. That's my understanding with this one. I don't know that it's ever going to get worked out. I mean, unless the company gets sold, maybe. I mean, who knows what'll happen. But one of the great 70s comedies, and I really wish it had a Blu-ray. Not even an interview with Elaine May on that. Okay, next up we have Minnie and Moskowitz. You'll notice a lot of these are Anchor Bay DVDs. Anchor Bay put out a lot of great stuff on DVD in the 2000s, and it's funny that some of it just hasn't found its way to Blu-ray. They were just able to sort things out maybe at the tail end of the home entertainment licensing. I don't know how it worked out. But anyway, Minnie and Moskowitz from John Cassavetes, starring Jenna Rollins and Seymour Cassel. Ostensibly a rom-com by the great Mr. Cassavetes, and it's just one of his best movies. It is, he's a parking lot attendant. I forget what she does. Museum curator Minnie Moore becomes disillusioned with her current relationship with her married boyfriend. She decides to break up with him and nearly gives up all hope of ever discovering a meaningful relationship with anyone she truly loves until she meets crazy parking lot attendant Seymour Cassel. As their relationship blossoms, Minnie begins to learn that there is hope for love and romance in a desperate world. This human, funny, and earnestly real story is one of Cassavetes' most likable films. Agreed. And this has a commentary with Jenna Rollins and Seymour Cassel, which is cool, and I haven't heard it in years, but I need to re-listen to it. Looks like it was originally put out by Universal, but I don't know what the hang-up with this one is, again, at least in terms of domestic release. But it is truly charming, but very Cassavetes in its way. It feels improvisational in a lot of sections, and it gets complicated in terms of their relationship. It's not all peachy and everything, but they are great together, and it is truly one of the gems in Cassavetes' catalog, so really hoping for a Blu-ray of that. Next we have They All Laughed. This is Peter Bogdanovich's film from 1981. I forget the exact year, but it is really something special. Now, this one's put out by HBO Video. Conversation with Bogdanovich and Wes Anderson, feature-length commentary with Bogdanovich. This offbeat New York romantic comedy from famed director Peter Bogdanovich, Paper Moon, What's Up, Doc, comes to DVD for the first time in an exclusive 25th anniversary director's edition featuring never-before-seen footage. When the Odyssey Detective Agency is given an assignment to trail two wives suspected of being unfaithful, they put three of their best detectives on the job. At first, it's all business, but soon the bumbling detectives succumb to the obvious charms of the two lovely ladies, and their investigation becomes a comical game of hide and seek. With a star-studded cast including Hollywood legend Audrey Hepburn, Ben Gazzara, John Ritter, he's one of the detectives, and in what would prove to be her last film role, Dorothy Stratton, They All Laughed remains a bittersweet cult comedy classic and one of Peter Bogdanovich's most personal and truly delightful films. It also stars Blaine Novak, who is that gentleman there. He is the star of the most recently released Stranger's Kiss from Fun City Editions. And he's great in this. Like, watching this movie, and there's a whole story in the Stranger's Kiss Blu-ray, which I talked about him and how he was sort of poised to take off. And you watch this movie and you're just like, you get it. You understand why he was cut short. And obviously a lot of that has to do with Dorothy Stratton's tragic murder and how it affected Bogdanovich and everybody involved with this film and the film itself. And that may be part of the reason it hasn't come out. I don't know. HBO Video tends to be problematic with Blu-ray releases. I don't fully understand what their deal is or why or how it's involved, but I know that there's some other HBO releases that have taken a while to get to Blu-ray. But yeah, this one's complicated, but I really do hope we see a Blu-ray someday because I feel like it's one that really needs it. I think this is on HBO Max at the moment, or at least it was, so at least folks can stream it in HD that way, but it's not available to own, I don't think, on digital, so, that's a bummer. But also, if people don't know about the movie, they don't know to look for it. Anyway, great film, really, really enjoy it. More funny stuff, we have Johnny Dangerously. This one is one of the great 80s comedies that's not available on Blu-ray. It was streaming, I think, also on HBO Max for a minute back, I don't know, last year at some point, but not available to own digitally that I'm aware of. I gotta double check that. But obviously a great role for Michael Keaton, a spoofy take on gangster films, including a wonderful theme song by Weird Al Yankovic. But a great cast, including Joe Piscopo, Peter Boyle. It just goes on and on. It's really quite funny. Amy Heckerling directed, who did, of course, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Let's see here. Of course, we have Mary Lou Henner, Maureen Stapleton, Griffin Dunn, Glynis O'Connor, Dom DeLuise, and Danny DeVito, among others. And yeah, it's just a blast. I just really love this one. It's highly quotable. This doesn't have any features, this DVD, but I would love to see a Blu-ray with some features. It's a Fox movie. I know that that's part of the problem with this one. And we'll see if that ever gets resolved. But I sure hope it does, because this one still makes me laugh. Very, very funny stuff. Let's see here. This is an interesting one. CQ. This is it Roman Coppola directed? Yes. Roman Coppola wrote and directed this one. Kind of a take on a couple different films. David Holzman's Diary is one of them, if you haven't seen that. That's L.M. Kit Carson in the film, which was one of the early sort of verite films. But it's sort of making fun of that because it's a guy filming his own life and it goes bad. So you have Jeremy Davies doing that while he's working on, it's almost kind of like Modern Romance too, in that Jeremy Davies is working on a 60s spy film that's kind of like Danger Diabolic. So you have multiple layers. You have the filming of himself, you have the filming of the movie, then you have the actual movie, which is very 60s. And this is a really great film. I don't know that Roman Coppola ever topped it, and I don't know why this one never got a Blu-ray either, but it's MGM, so I would think it could happen. But this has got a lot of great stuff. Commentary with him and cinematographer Bob Yellman, codenamed Dragonfly Films, that's the movie they're making, 4 personal filmmaking documentaries, 6 feature. I mean, this is a great disc, and it's a really enjoyable film. I really hope we get a Blu-ray of that. Just some random 80s comedies. We have Hot Pursuit from Steven Lisberger, director of Tron. And this was the movie he did right after Tron. And it is not quite like a tone-shifting movie like Something Wild, Demi's movie, or Limbo, John Sayles' movie, but a little bit of that, because it's kind of like, it starts as kind of a comedy about a guy played by Cusack who's supposed to go on a vacation with his girlfriend's family, but he flunks his chemistry exam, I think, and so he's not going to be able to go, and so he gets left behind, but then finds out that he has passed. His teacher gives him a break, and then he spends the movie kind of trying to catch up with his girlfriend and her family, and they end up getting stuck on a boat with some bad folks. I'm not going to spoil who those are, but it turns into more of a thriller. But it is fun and silly and dark in some spots, and the only movie I think where Cusack fires machine guns. I don't know of another one off the top of my head. But it's super fun and interesting and available to stream, but not on Blu-ray, and I really like this movie, so I really want a Blu-ray of it. How We Got Into College, Savage Steve Holland. Everybody has seen Better Off Dead. Many have seen One Crazy Summer. Less people have seen How I Got Into College, and it's just one of those movies that I really like. It stars Corey Parker and a younger Lara Flynn Boyle as sort of his crush, and it's he and her trying to get into colleges, and Anthony Edwards is sort of the guy in charge of letting people in at certain colleges, and there's one in particular they both want to go to, and there's some great bits about like those test questions where they're saying like, you know, this, if they make a real life situation of it. So-and-so is in a boat. The boat is gaining water at X amount of rate. At how long before? How much water would they need to bail to, you know, whatever. And Tom Kenny is one of the guys that ends up in these sort of dream sequences. And he's one who they start responding to people answering the questions and like, hurry up, answer this kind of stuff. Anyway, it's very goofy, but it has that wonderful Savage Steve Holland sense of humor, and I think it's delightful. I don't think it's streaming anywhere, maybe on YouTube somewhere, but another Fox movie, so another trick in terms of it ever showing up on Blu-ray, but, you know, we can always hope. No features on this. I've always wanted some features from Savage Steve. Shoot to Kill, Roger Spottiswoode thriller from 1991, I want to say, oh no, you know what, it's later, it's 80s, it's like 88, sounds about right. This one's weird because it's a 2-3-5-1 movie, so widescreen, a great thriller about I don't know if, I forget if he's a serial killer or kidnapper or robber or combination of all three, but he gets away from Sidney Poitier, who works with the FBI at the beginning of the film, and he escapes to the northern wilderness of Canada, I think. I can't remember. Maybe it's the Pacific Northwest. And so he's in this group of guys being led on a sort of deep woods hiking expedition by Kirstie Alley. Her boyfriend is played by Tom Berenger. We don't know who he is because we haven't seen him. So he's one of like 5 different guys. And Richard Mazur's in the group. Scorpio from Dirty Harry is in there. A bunch of guys you'd recognize, and any one of them could be him. So it's kind of like The Thing in that sense. And so we have to wait to see if he reveals himself. And Poitier is a city FBI guy, and Tom Berenger is a wildernessy guy, and so it's one of those things where you kind of have to wait and see how this fish out of water thing shakes out, and they don't really like each other, and blah blah blah. And he's out to save his girlfriend, so he doesn't really care if Poitier comes or not, you know, if he loses him. But a really great thriller, and one that dearly deserves a Blu-ray. It's Buena Vista, sort of a Disney thing, so I don't know. I guess maybe they haven't done a bunch of stuff, but it feels like they've licensed a little bit. So I'm really hoping this finds its way onto a Blu-ray at some point. It's just a great, great movie. American Splendor. This is another HBO video release. This is directed by the duo of Robert Pulcini and Sherry Springer Berman. and it is just fantastic. It is an adaptation ostensibly of the work of Harvey Peacock, who was an underground comic writer, and he is played wonderfully by Paul Giamatti in this film. But it's a great combination of documentary and real life. Sort of Peacock himself at the beginning, talking to camera, saying, "This is my story," and he will interject here and there, and just incredibly funny and well observed. And Peacock is a character to end all characters, and Giamatti nails it. But it's great to have himself in the movie as well. I just love this one. So well done, and just great. This has a commentary. Harvey Peacock's My Movie Year comic book insert. I mean, not a lot of stuff, but still, really, really want this on Blu-ray. I'm a big fan of it. It's from, I forget, 2003 maybe? I don't know. Next up, we have Richard Linklater's film Tape. Richard Linklater, one of my favorite working filmmakers at this time. This one's, I think, from 2001, or is it the late 90s? No, 2001. And I think this was shot... it doesn't say. I want to say this was shot on like mini DV or something, but now I'm forgetting. And this has a production commentary, which may explain that. It stars Ethan Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard, and Uma Thurman. And I'm not sure if Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke were together already at this time. When did Gattaca come out? 97? Or if they're broken up. I don't know. But it's kind of a one-room thing. I want to say it's based on a play. Screenplay by Stephen Belber, based on his stage play. Directed by Linklater. So it all kind of takes place in one motel room. And it says, after 10 years apart, three disparate people come together to play out the unresolved drama of their final days in high school. As years of denial slowly peel away, each is revoked into revealing their true nature. That's about all I'd want to say about it if you haven't seen it. It is a dark movie. It is a confrontational movie. It is not a comedy. Although I want to say there's some lighter moments towards the front of it. I can't remember if this one is streaming. I didn't double check anywhere. It might be, but it, and maybe the source material, the DV tapes or whatever, make it difficult for a Blu-ray. I hadn't thought about that specifically, but it's definitely one of his lesser talked about movies, and I really do think it's a gem, although it maybe doesn't have quite the same rewatchability as a lot of his more comedic, even dramas, because it gets kind of heavy, but it's really well acted by these three. It's interesting to see Ethan Hawke and Robert Sean Leonard back together after Dead Poets Society, but very solid, and one that I really, really need a Blu-ray of, because I want all Linklater Blu-rays. Okay. Next to last, we have Heavy. This is James Mangold's film. I want to say it's his debut film. Really, again, well-observed drama, with Liv Tyler and a remarkable performance from Pruitt Taylor Vince. But also in the mix is Debbie Harry, Shelley Winters, and Evan Dando from the Lemonheads. But I'm a big fan of this one. It was on Netflix for a while. It might still be there. So it is streaming. It has some streaming availability from time to time. But this DVD has a really neat commentary from Mangold, who is obviously working on movies right now. And is a director that I like. I was one that liked Dial of Destiny, and I, just look forward to each of his films as he goes. I think he's a really solid craftsman. I think he got a lot more notoriety after like Copland, but this is a great film. And he talks about, in the commentary, about Milos Forman and being an influence on him as a director, and Milos being the kind of director that would go over to the actor and quietly whisper to them, take them aside in terms of giving direction, as opposed to those that just sort of yell things from Video Village or wherever, and just how much that impacted him, and how that's, I don't know if that's still how he directs, but that's how he was saying he directed at this time. And yeah, it's, what are the thingy? Pruitt Taylor Vince, Victor, is the overweight, underappreciated cook at Pete and Dolly's, a roadside diner where the regulars are even staler than the coffee and just as bitter. Callie, Liv Tyler, the enchanting new waitress, is a breath of fresh air who breezes her way right into Victor's heart. So that's kind of the story that we're talking about. And yeah, it's just always stuck with me since I saw it for the first time, and it's just very well acted and neat little story and needs more eyes on it, I think. But look, that one might be streaming. And lastly, R.I.P. to the great Roger Corman. His film The Intruder, a.k.a. I Hate Your Guts, a.k.a. probably some other titles, starring William Shatner in probably his greatest performance. This one's only got a DVD from New World or Concord. And it's got Remembering the Intruder, all new featurette with Roger Corman and William Shatner. No commentary, but this is as far as it goes with this one. It only made it to DVD. And how do they describe it on the back? Arriving in a sleepy southern town on the eve of integration, slick, charismatic Adam Kramer, William Shatner, is an ominous influence, inciting its white citizens into racial fervor and plunging the once quiet community into a state of chaos. So he's an agitator, and he is scary in the way that he manipulates people, and it's just a very impactful movie, very powerful movie. And unlike really anything else Corman ever did, it's a very serious film, and it, for a long time, was the only film he had made that didn't make money. I've heard now it has gotten into the black in terms of making money back. But I don't know if he never licensed it out and made the Blu-ray in his lifetime, because I don't know. I know he was supposedly very proud of this film. So, it may have been something he just didn't want to put out. I don't know what the deal is, but I really hope that with his passing, hopefully there's somebody that can license this and put out a nice Blu-ray edition of it. I was lucky enough to see this projected on videotape at the Video Archive Cinema Club in Los Angeles, Tarantino's cinema club, with a crowd of only maybe like 18 people. But boy, did it hit everybody hard. And I don't think many people in the crowd had seen it. And it packs a wallop, let me tell you. And it changes your view of Shatner. It changes your view of Star Trek. It's really something. And I just want it to be out there in a nice Blu-ray format. Again, I don't know if it's streaming. Maybe there's a YouTube rip, but this DVD is it for the moment. So anyway, that'll do it for this installment of Not on Blu-ray. Hopefully there's some stuff in here for you to check out, either via these DVDs or maybe some of them are streaming, so you can check them out that way. But I've got a bunch more of this stuff, so I hope to do more like this. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.